Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. Pleased to be joined by Joey Feer. How's it going, man?
Going good, man. Just happy to be here, happy to be on, talking to you, and just excited.
Okay, so kind of tell everybody what you do and just kind of introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so my name is Joey Feerer. I am a um, senior right now. I'm going to be graduating next semester. But yeah, I'm a sports broadcaster for Ohio State. I call games on the radio,
Mhm.
Scarlet and Gray Sports Radio, where I started. And then I do a lot of TV side. I do Big Ten Plus as well, the streaming side of Big Ten Network. So TV and radio in a wide variety of sports. I've been calling for over 2 years now, and it's been great.
Yeah. Um, so what I always like to ask people this whenever I get um, how did you first get into this? Like, what made you just like, I want to go into this?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's an industry that it's like so many people see, and it's like such a desirable industry. So I originally didn't go to Ohio State. My freshman year, I went to Washington State in Pullman.
Yeah.
So I went there, and then I was a psychology major. Wanted to do psychology, and then COVID hit. I didn't want to really be there anymore. I had family here in Ohio, so just basically made the transition to Ohio State because it was a school that I grew up with, families from here. And then from there, I remember my sophomore year, took psychology classes more, and I wasn't enjoying it. I always wanted to go into sports, but I just kind of never made that leap. And I was always, being a young kid, always just obsessed with like the broadcasters. I remember watching college football Saturday night and, watching Kirk Herbstreit, Brent Musburger, just the best. And that's where I started to fall in love with it. I think I just never really took the leap until towards the end of my sophomore year, where I was like, this is what I want to do. So I switched my major, and I've been grinding ever since.
Yeah. So where are you from?
So originally from Denver, Colorado. So I grew up there, and then went to Washington State my freshman year, and then transferred to Ohio State.
Yeah, Denver, Colorado to Columbus. So that's a,
Yeah,
that's a bit of a transition there, bud.
yeah, quite the transition, but I mean it's worked out great, and I've just been just so lucky here at Ohio State because it's got the best athletic programs in the country. That's the most varsity sports. So just to call that and it has been great.
Okay, so obviously Ohio State's got a lot of sports and all that stuff. So what is like? I know you've called pretty much everything and imaginable. Just list off some of the sports that you've been in.
Yeah, so obviously I've called a lot of sports. So football, basketball, baseball, softball, lacrosse, wrestling, field hockey, basically almost every sport. The only sport I haven't called that's a big one is hockey. I just really have not gotten there yet. It's I could have, it just haven't been calling that.
Yeah. What's the hardest sport to call that you've done?
Yeah, definitely the hardest sport. I mean, obviously, it just depends, situation, radio, TV. I obviously basketball I love a lot, but it's not easy because there's so many things going on during the game that that's tough. So you really have to follow the game and basically paint the picture of a lot of these games when on the radio. So that's been for me probably the toughest, but I've definitely grown a lot in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your favorite sport to call?
Favorite sport, yeah, favorite sport's basketball. But I've grown to really liking. I never thought I would like calling lacrosse or like field hockey, but the games get interesting. They get pretty intense, so I love calling those as well. But I would say basketball for now. But again, I'm open to a lot of different sports, and I've learned throughout calling these games of just like never really knew much about field hockey, and then when I first called field hockey, just kind of started getting into the groove of that. So that's been good.
So what have you kind of like just like learned about a lot of these like because you probably have like a lot of these sports it's like no you just have to learn the sport though. What's been what was the most challenging sport to learn you think?
Yeah, I would say the most challenging sport to learn, probably wrestling. I would say wrestling for sure. Wrestling. That was one that I remember like it was a wrestling match that they needed people to get on for. And I was like, I've never called wrestling. Why not? And that wasn't easy. I remember calling it by myself on Big Ten Plus, and I was like, Oh my gosh, but I'd say that one was tough just because I've never really been familiar with that. But it just depends, obviously, what sports you kind of gravitate towards.
Mhm.
People obviously like calling different sports, but people like certain sports other than others. But I've just been really lucky just to call from just a wide variety of sports and meet certain people and kind of get in with that, and it's really just helped me.
Uh, okay, so let's go like what are some of your like best moments that you've had that you've been a part of?
Yeah, so best moments, I'll say, okay, one that comes top of my head, I called the buzzer beater when Ohio State hit that 3-point shot over Rutgers. I called that on the radio. That was one of the most insane things I've been a part of so far. That arena, the Schottenstein Arena, just went crazy, and the whole atmosphere was unbelievable. I'd say that, but I've been fortunate to go to Minnesota this past March for calling the women's basketball tournament. I was in Indianapolis last year, same thing, calling the women's basketball tournament. Was also at Duke and Cameron Indoor this year, calling Ohio State men's versus Duke. That for me was probably one of my most special moments.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, go inside. You get to travel to a lot of these places, but what was it like to go inside Duke?
Yeah, that is one, like, Cameron Indoor is probably, they say it's like the mecca of college basketball, but I mean, it truly is. I remember me and my friend drove down there. It was about an 8-hour drive.
Yeah.
We got approved for credentials and everything. And I mean, walking into Cameron Indoor for the first time, it just hits you like the history. It's such a small arena, and it's like it looks like a church. I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they play here. And it was just unbelievable just to even be there. I was able to meet some people. I met Dick Vitale there, which was just like, I'm like, I just fanboyed over him. It was just like, yeah, like I was just like he was coming past me, and I was like, oh my god, Dick, can I have a picture? And he's like, he knew what was up, so that was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, just that going to Duke was for sure probably the most memorable so far, just because the history. I mean, they had all this like memorabilia in front. You walk in, it's a feeling when you're there. It was unbelievable. I wouldn't trade that for the world.
So, you kind of mentioned it there, but yeah, you probably in this job, and obviously speaking from experience,
Yeah,
you get to meet a lot of cool people.
yeah.
What was that like to just say it's like, do you ever get like what's the word I'm looking for? Do you ever get like starstruck when you meet a lot of these guys, a lot of these people?
Yeah, I mean, like you're kind of in the moment, so you just like have to kind of like just go quickly. Just it was hard to think, but like I remember when I first saw Dick Vitale, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's Dick Vitale. I see him all the time on TV, and it's like it's weird when you see him in person because it's like
Yeah.
it's an actual person.
Oh yeah.
It's weird. So when I first met him, I just took a picture, and I was just like, it was hard of hearing a little, but it was just the fact that like to meet him and other people I met some other broadcasters as well, and you definitely look up to him because it's like, there's a lot of growth involved, and that's somebody where I want to get to his point. I want to get to where he's going. So, it's encouraging to meet these guys.
Yeah, it really is. So what's like the biggest thing that you've like seen yourself work on and like, what's the biggest thing you've gotten better at this year that you've like, wow, I used to be really bad at that. Now I'm really good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's definitely with broadcasting. It's like a sport in a way. It's growth, and it's just reps, and it's just getting better over time. Because I remember when I first called games, I was just like, oh my god, I don't know what I'm doing. I sound terrible. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is not for me. Even though it's like you got to stick with it and you got to keep pursuing because that was tough. I remember at the start and just kind of going through that and just being like, I sound terrible. This is not for like this. This doesn't seem like it's for me. Even though I felt like this is what I wanted to do. It just was like your voice was like, oh, well, I'm not good at broadcasting. Well, it takes time to get better, just like a sport. So it's just building reps. And I remember having to call field hockey on the radio and like the back of the stadium overlooking. Like it was just like the worst thing. But like you go through that so you can get the better opportunities, and you got to put the work in. It's not something that just comes natural because I thought it would when I originally started, but now learning, I'm like, you got to work at it, and I have, and continuing to get better. I'm nowhere near where I want to get to, but through these first 2.5 years, I've definitely been like, wow, I can see a future in this.
Yeah. Um, so where do you want to go? I always have like, where do you want to end up? I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, it's like, I know what you're gonna say because there's so many things that you can
yeah.
be able to do.
Yeah. So I would say, well, right now, so I'm graduating next semester, but over the summer, I'm calling in the Northwoods League, which is a collegiate summer baseball league.
Right.
Calling 72 games on the radio. So just traveling with the team. So that's what I'm doing for obviously this summer, but so that's going to be really busy, and I'm excited I'm doing that. But in this industry, I think it's kind of wherever the job takes you. There's no real one path. I've talked.
There really isn't.
It really isn't. I mean, I've talked to people that got into broadcasting when they were 30, 40 years old, and now they're doing great. I've talked to people that got into broadcasting when my age, and now they're doing great. There's no real one path. I think it's just continuing to get reps and build yourself over time. Networking is a huge part of the industry. I've noticed as well is meeting certain people and putting yourself out there, because if you don't put yourself out there, unfortunately in this industry, people aren't really going to care.
Right.
Yeah, I mean it's a industry that really is it's rewarding, but it's such a desirable industry that like so many people want to be in, especially a play-by-play broadcaster, that you really kind of have to find your own path. And it's easy to get distracted from other people saying, well, they're doing this, or they're doing, they're going these places. You got to remain focused on your goal. So that for me, that's what I'm still learning and have learned throughout this.
So what are your goals for next year? I know that you're going to be graduating soon. Like, what do you want to accomplish by the time that you graduate from Ohio State?
Yeah, so I think, well, number one, I mean, obviously over the summer, calling games over the summer is big. I want to just continue to grow in baseball, because I know baseball, that's a sport where there's like so many opportunities, because there's so many minor league teams and there's so many games. So I definitely want to continue to get better at that, for sure. But I'd say, graduating Ohio State, I'm hoping to call football more this fall. Just continuing to get better as a broadcaster, and building reels and reps, to send out to people and to send out to certain things. It's big, so just got to continue to work on that. That's for sure.
Well, Joey, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us, and best of luck in your broadcasting career. Hey, we'll have you maybe, and we'll definitely have you on again sometime.
Hey, Casey, thank you so much. It was a great time talking to you and meeting you. Hopefully we can talk soon.